Well, good afternoon, everybody, and today it's Juanita's birthday. So I've just got this special little video running for Juanita's birthday. Happy birthday, Juanita.
Thank you. Isn't that beautiful? Lovely.
You weren't expecting Katy Perry to be wishing you a happy birthday, were you?
No, I was not. Thank you, Mark.
That's okay. So
we're not tea and scones. That's what just came up on the screen. We're not tea and scones.
Oh, did I do tea and scones?
We did.
Did I press the wrong button today? My apologies. Wow, tea and scones came up. I got the wrong one.
The rural succession thing.
The state and succession mastery. Okay, I can play the other one again, but let's get into it today. So I just want to share what we were talking about the other day, and that is we're talking firstly about the new book that's coming out in a couple of weeks, Succession, Legacy and Dignity. And if you were watching last week, we were actually talking about what's in that. So let me just go and we'll follow through on where we got to in regard to our process map, and so we can talk about effectively what's inside.
So where do people buy your book, Mark, to put in their Christmas stockings?
It's going to be available on all good places like Facebook.
Excellent.
There'll be lots of Facebook ads, but no, if anyone's watching and wants to get a copy of the book, please just drop me an email and I'll get a copy out. I'll send you the link and get a copy out to you. But as we were saying last week, this is our 9-step process that we take people through, and the book, amongst many other things, there will be 9 chapters in the book going into more detail and exactly in regard to each of these steps. Last week we talked about a cuppa and a chat, the burning issues, the family harmony, and we got on to the due diligence process that you guys get involved in to make sure that effectively we're working from a solid foundation and a solid base. So today we're going to finish off the next 5 parts of the book, starting with the distribution matrix. But I just want to say also in the book we'll be talking very much about real life stories about how in each of these scenarios how people have been involved, conversations that we've had in each of the 9 steps where either a light bulb has really turned on or something really significant has been discovered. And so I'm trying to keep the book as well, certainly they'll all be real stories. There's no made up stories as we go through this, but very much about a practical point of view in regard to how we help people with fairness and so on the way through. So the distribution matrix, Juanita, this is a good one for you to make some comments about today. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah,
you're very aware of what we do there.
Absolutely. Basically, the distribution matrix is a document that we prepare as part of the process in putting people's wills together, and after we've had good discussions with them. And it's a spreadsheet format which lists all the assets and liabilities that you may have, and then separately it lists columns for each of your beneficiaries. So it may be each of your children. And then it enables you to drop down into the document what you wish to give to each child and totals that up at the bottom. So it's a really good way to get a visual in one page about what sort of inheritance value that each child may get and what percentage of the total is. Because in your head you might think, you'll give these assets here and these assets here, but when you put all the values together, it may not be an exact percentage. And as we've always said, fair doesn't always mean equal, but it's really good, especially if you're a visual person, to see that. The other thing that we also do in this document is go into a bit of a deeper dive for some of the assets that are gifted. There's often tax consequences. So, for example, superannuation gifted to an adult child will be taxed. And also there could be capital gains tax consequences in the future. If you gift a property, for example, to a child and then they sell it, then they'll be taxed on that sale. So we incorporate those sort of things into the document too, so you can get more of a net feel, not just a dollar value feel of where that beneficiary or child will end up. So I'm really good at pulling it together and being able to see where everyone will end up net after your will is carried out.
Very good. You've done that before, so it was a very good explanation.
I've done it a few times.
That's right. I just want to cover off a couple of what we call the pain points when we go through this, and one of them is the distribution matrix apportions assets fairly across the children. So as you said, after tax and tax issues and debts and so on. The pain point is that sometimes people get frustrated at not knowing how to start the process of creating fairness. And I must admit, in the last week, some of the clients, one of the clients in particular that we've been working through things with, it was a real struggle for them to create fairness when you've got, one of the children working on the farm and 3 others not working on the farm. It's just a matter of sort of working out what's still fair, taking into account that the one that's been working on the farm obviously has made contribution, might have been there for 20, 30 years and so on. But and the other point is that if it wasn't fair, this was a family where there would have been a disputed will. So we had to be really careful in regard to how much was, sort of the percentage that was allocated effectively to each of the 4 children to make sure that each of them understand that that's the gift from mum and dad. And at the end of the day, it's a gift. It's not an entitlement. But having said that, if there's conflict already between siblings, fairness is a very important thing that everyone understands and is quantifiable and can be validated easily. So that's where we are with the distribution matrix, and a very important part. We've had people where the for example, car dealers, as you know, Juanita, where the guy that's running the car business has ended up with a huge proportion of the business. His other 2 siblings, a much smaller, significantly smaller portion of the business, but yet everyone saw that as a fair outcome because of the time that he'd been in the business, the grief, the heartache, and the work that was involved compared to the contribution by the other siblings. And so, as long as you have conversations and communication around this, then we're fine and dandy.
And the other thing it picks up too, which I just thought of as you were talking, Mark, is things like loans and securities and mortgages over assets. So, it's pretty obvious maybe not, but you can gift an asset to someone, but they don't get the whole value of that if there's a mortgage over it or if there's a loan secured over it. So it also takes into account those sort of things too. So you see the net result.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And one of the other things, one of what we call the micro solutions, so to speak, as part of the distribution matrix that we're doing now, is making sure that we're including in this, whilst estate planning is for the right now, what happens if something had happened last night, more and more now I'm going to start including basically a succession roadmap so that, one, they can see what happens from an estate point of view, but also from a succession point of view. There may be a growing entitlement of one sibling over another as the period of time goes on, or one or more of the siblings might want to start purchasing some of the stock, some of the business, and so on. So the distribution matrix just isn't sort of a static thing. It can also be turned into something which looks 5-10 years down the track. So this in itself, very important. And I say this about everything, every one of the 9, but I mean, distribution matrix, very, very important part of the whole process, because at the end of the day, that's a key to the family harmony that we're making sure we create so that the kids still get together at Christmas as buddies. Number 6, step number 6, and the third one across in family fairness is protected prosperity. And really, this very much involves you guys, Juanita, the lawyers, in regard to making sure that the wealth that you're handing down from one generation to the next is protected, and either in a bloodline trust type environment, but it's protected against failed marriages, bankruptcy, premature death, and a whole range of other things. So So let's talk about this step in the process. Juanita?
Yeah, so I guess, after the initial consultations and conversations and, working through the distribution matrix, it's time to actually prepare the documents. And usually there's a discussion as to what documents suit the client, because it's not a one size fits all. And then with each different document, there may be a different type of document. And so, for example, a will, there's not one will fits all. So that, you might have a basic will, you might have a testamentary trust will, you might have different types of testamentary trust wills. So there's clarity in this step as to what documents will form your estate planning package. And then that's when we get busy and actually draft them all up. Usually we'll draft the various documents and then send them out to the clients for a read through and a review and a discussion. So ideally you want the client to to understand what's in their documents. And obviously, with lots of legal words, it might not be clear, but this is, I guess, where the financial advisors and the tactical team, as you can see, they really earn their money and pull it all together to produce the documents that's required.
Look, absolutely. And once again here, just touching on what we call the pain points that are experienced here. Very much between the generations. It's important for mum and dad. They may have built this up from nothing. They may have had it handed down to them from previous generation or two previous generations. So protecting that wealth through the generations is very important. But to be honest, nobody really knows how to do it. So that's where I guess our advice is so valuable, because most people sort of just wonder what's going to happen if one of the kids gets divorced or whatever, and they don't know the structured way that we can help them with that. Certainly making sure that all the documents are up to date, that there's no risk of any seepage to outsiders. And a really important part of protected prosperity too, Juanita, is making sure the spouse is okay, so that the surviving parent is taken care of, and everything that needs to be available is available when needed, because it's not often that parents both die together. So you've always got to make sure that we've planned in and taken care of the remaining parent as they're getting on, and they'll have special and particular needs as well. Any other thoughts about protected prosperity?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Mark. So when we are drafting documents and preparing an estate plan, we're always thinking in different scenarios, one being if one parent, for example, passed away, and then the second being what if something happened to both, and accordingly accounting for those two different scenarios. And that's a really good reason. Some people will say, why do I need to get a will? One very good reason is because the way that the law applies when you don't have a will may mean that the surviving spouse isn't entirely protected and looked after, because a share has to automatically go off to the kids. So without getting into too much complexity, it's really important to consider that first stage potentially, and then the second stage.
Yep. Okay. Very good. Now we move on now to what's called the final documents, and this doesn't happen with your firm, but I know with a lot of law firms, this just drags on and on and on, and people are waiting for documents, and traditionally legal firms are not good at following through and getting things finalised. And I say that with love and care. I often wonder why, because that way you can send out the bill when it's all done. But so there's really a role for me there to make sure that the documents are, the whole process is continued, that we've got all the final documents. People have had the drafts, they've had conversations, we've had our Zoom meetings and so on, but then you've got the final documents, and certainly that's making sure they're all completed. In some instances, we've put in place through you guys, we need interim wills where it looks like there's an urgent need to bring people's positions up to date, and it may take two or 3 months to get all the documentation done for whatever reason. There's been times when people have put in place for us interim wills for clients based on conversations, the meetings, and the communication that's been held where there's been enough witnesses around to be able to validate what they've said. But certainly, it's making sure we create a timeline around getting all these things done. So we're going from drafts to completed documents, and in regard to not just their wills, enduring powers of attorney, advanced health directives, and so on. It's just making sure that the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. I think I got that the right way around, and we've done the legal, the technical part of the process, and everything's in place.
Yeah, and how that looks from a practical perspective, once the documents are all drafted and finalised and understood, they need to be signed, and there are very specific signing instructions for, in particular, wills and enduring powers of attorney. And so usually the clients will come in and we'll sign them in person together. It's been a really interesting year with COVID because obviously that hasn't been able to happen in every circumstance. And there's been some minor changes in the law during this period to allow for that. But what we would normally do is get the client to come in and sign the documents or post them out if it's impossible for them to come in with all the signing instructions and walk them through that, because you don't want to get to this stage and then make a fatal mistake with the signing. A lot of people also aren't really clear what happens then. So what happens to the documents? I had an appointment today with a couple to sign all their documents, and they said, what happens now? So what happens practically is that usually all the original documents that are signed we keep in our safe custody on behalf of the client, because it's really important they're kept somewhere safe, not in your bedroom, side table drawer. So nowhere the dog can get them, nowhere that they can be stolen, nowhere that they can get coffee spilt on them, nowhere if the house burns down they'll go with them. So that's why they're best retained in safe custody. And everything's together. We always send scan copies these days. We used to post them, but more so just email scan copies these days. So you can keep them on your important documents file on your computer. And then there might be things like binding death benefit nominations where we'll post them to the superannuation people on the client's behalf. So that's sort of tidying up at the other end. Once we get to that final document stage, there's still a little bit of admin that needs to be done.
Yeah, no, fantastic, and it's a very important part of it. It's all very well to go in, have the meetings, get all the draft documents done, but we've got to make sure that it's finalised, tied up. There's a bow tied around it, and everyone can get on until there's changes made. And
that's it. And reviewed every few years. And
that's right.
People feel really good when they get to this stage and all the documents are signed and everything's done, and they walk out that door and they just feel a real sense of I suppose it depends. Lots of different feelings, like relief and really happy that they've done that. They've got that action item ticked off their list, and it's been probably sitting there and brewing for a long time, and they've got that comfort and satisfaction that that's all been put in place, and they can move on. With that comfort, I guess.
Absolutely, and whilst from a legal point of view, it's good to if you don't have someone like me on your case every year, it's good to go back every 5 years probably and see a lawyer to make sure that everything's relevant, current, and up to date, because things change all the time. And as we come to in the 9th step, the peace of mind, I'll talk about why I have annual meetings with clients just to cover that very thing. Okay. And sorry, just in regard to before we go on, your birthday party tonight, you're spending it with 50,000 of your closest friends?
I am at Suncorp Stadium / Lang Park to see Queensland win the series for 2020.
Very, very good.
Very romantic birthday dinner it will be.
With all those other people, that's right. Okay, so step 8 of our process, which will be explained in detail in our book, Succession, Legacy and Dignity, is the estate blueprint, and this is step number 8. And this is all the human elements. This is all the stuff nobody else does, but it's the stuff that we find the most valuable for our clients, the customers and so on, to go through and start talking from their heart and make sure that, as I say, to make sure that nothing's left unsaid. So what the pain points this kind of covers off on is family confusion on parents' death, wishes and words left unsaid. We make sure that hopefully doesn't happen. The fact that people go through emotional paralysis when a parent dies a lot of times, and thought processes aren't what they should be. And so what we're trying to do is make sure we've documented everything for our clients, so there's no confusion and there's no arguments between the kids, more importantly, because trying to work out where someone's going to be buried or whether they're cremated and all those sorts of things. I mean, it's just, if you haven't documented it, it's just another reason why your kids are going to argue and have disputes. And so what we're trying to do is take all that grief and angst away from those left behind, and certainly in regard to things that you want to make sure were never left unsaid, we give people the opportunity to do that. So some of the tools, frameworks we use, many of you would have heard of the Dear Mary letter, where you get the opportunity to say things to your partner, to say things to your spouse, to your children, and so on. We have a tool called the First 90 Days, and that's very much about, as I say, when people are going through emotional paralysis and the kids are sitting there wondering what to do, it's kind of a list to say, well, day one, this is what you need to do. In the first week, these are the things you need to take care of in the first month, first fortnight or whatever. In month 2, start to do this. Month 3, sell clothes, all those sort of practical things. We make sure there's a list of who are the important people that need to be contacted. One of our frameworks, very popular one, is what's called the Leave Well Communique, and that's basically where you leave those instructions. Which church, what flowers do you want on the coffin, who do you want reading the eulogy if you wanted to choose that, all these sorts of...
yeah.
Sorry, what's that?
What music you want to play is the tough one in my experience, yeah.
Yeah, what music you want to play, is there a flag you want draped over, what do you want draped over the coffin? Is it the rugby league footy jersey or whatever? But also we talk about plan Bs with people when people don't always die in order. So if you've sort of planned everything based on the fact that dad's going to go first and mum's going to go second, what's plan B in case, something happens the other way around, and so on. And putting together, once again, just reinforcing the tactical team, and probably in a different sense here. And this is the team that, for example, if there's a business involved and the kids are still very young, who are the people that are going to help run the business or run it to sell it, and those sorts of things. So what we're trying to create here is to take people from ambiguity to confidence in regard to having a fully documented, fully funded plan with all words being said, not left unsaid.
Yeah, and also another really useful tool here, particularly if you run a business or if you have a farm, for example, is a document we'll often prepare along with the will, which you can just give directions to your trusted people, your tactical team, as to how what direction or strategy you would hope that the business or the farm would take after your death, which can be very handy, because you'll obviously put that in the hands of someone that you trust, especially if the children aren't old enough to take over. But you need to have the opportunity to give some direction as to, what your values and strategy and principles are, and wishes and hopes for that business, if it is to carry on, for example, or it might just be to sell up. But all those sort of things just make it so much easier and less stressful, and much smoother process for the people that are left behind.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so that's the estate blueprint, and that's just such an important part of the whole process. It's what I call the human elements in the process. I mean, the part that Juanita and her business do, which is in regard to the legal documents, the wills, powers of attorney, advanced health directives, and all those sorts of things. Testamentary trusts are all the legal stuff. Part 5 is really my child, and this is the bit, as I say, which is the human elements, which in a lot of cases, at the time when someone dies, this is the stuff they see as the most valuable. What music to play, what flowers to put on coffins, and so on. That really makes difference in people's lives. And then finally, the last step is what I call peace of mind, and that's really about, how do we make sure that all this work we've done isn't just thrown in the top drawer and people sort of walk out going, yep, isn't that great? I feel good. We've done all this. And then they leave it there, and in 5 years' time, it's out of date because things have changed. They've bought, sold businesses, properties, whatever. Kids have decided to stay on the land or not stay on the land, and so on. So in this final part, what we do is have an arrangement with our clients. We don't want to have a transaction with people. We want to have a relationship, an ongoing relationship with people that work with us. And so each 12 months, we agree to have a meeting to go through, to talk about what's changed in their lives. I take the opportunity. What I'm doing now is actually talking to all the children as well, so that as kids' dreams and desires may change, that may affect some of the strategies we've already put in place. We also have what we call a succession roadmap update, and that's the non-estate part. This is the ongoing, what happens in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever, in regard to, mum and dad gradually going to hand over some of parts of the farm or parts of the business to the kids on the way through. And one of the things which I think is the most valuable is a concept I created called the Guardian Advantage, and that is if someone does pass away during that 12-month period, I turn up as the guardian angel effectively with all these documents, especially all the estate blueprint documents, and turn up for the family so that all the things that you've written down that they need to do, the Dear Mary letters, the first 90 days, all those sorts of things, I turn up with those in my hand and help the family through those first stressful and emotional days when everyone's suffering their, as I say, emotional paralysis. So they're the 9 steps in the process. Any comments just to finish off there, Juanita?
Yeah, peace of mind, I guess, I touched on earlier, once that you get to this end of this process, that it's it certainly, visibly to a lot of clients that I see does give them peace of mind. I think, definitely you need to review your estate planning documents every 5 years at the latest. Maybe every few years, or on the event of something significant, like the examples you gave, Mark. And from our point of view, it may not be that anything needs changing. The documents might not be needing changing, but that's not the point. The point is to spend just a moment to review, have a look, and just think through whether they need changing, and whether any events that have happened require an update. So that's the key thing. Not trotting off to see a lawyer, is just reviewing the documents and just going through that thought process. Yeah,
absolutely. Now next Wednesday, just as an aside, I'll be up at Blackall next Wednesday, Juanita. So I'm going to leave the topic for next week to you this time. Absolutely, that's yours to choose for next week. And but I'll be dialing in from Blackall. So look forward to chatting with you up there. So I hope that
hope they have reception in the motel.
Absolutely, I think I'm staying in a pub up there. The rest of the town's booked out.
Okay.
But no, I hope going through what's going to be in the book was valuable to people watching today, and very excited about that coming out in a couple of weeks. And as I say, there's going to be lots of examples, real life examples, and so on. I just want to use it as a tool for people to understand how they can take action, how to not be paralysed in regard to, excuse me, what to do, how to get the conversation started, and so on. So thanks for your time today, Juanita. Happy birthday. Hope you have a great birthday. Now that you're 29 again, so hope you have a great night celebrating that.
Thank you.
Look forward to chatting with you next week. And I will press the right button right now in regard to sending us out. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.